Welcome to Your Time to Soar, the wisdom from pearls with Lois, Leonard, and Dr. Pat. What are the pearls? Have you ever heard from your parents or grandparents basic information like God never gives you more than you can handle, or this too shall pass? These pearls are some of the tools that will help dreams come to life. Your Time to Soar with the Wisdom and Pearls is a show that reminds or introduces us to the sayings from mentors that provide us wisdom when going to achieve our dreams. These gems provide a return to basics to simplify your life. If you're looking for a change in your life, stay tuned with us. Your Time to Soar starts now.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Pat. Welcome to the show. I get to have a co-pilot seat for this show. Before we start, if you want to find out more about Lois, her coaching practice, please go to timetosoarcoaching.ca. Timetosoarcoaching.ca. Why? Because today you're going to hear about some of the things that either help us chart the course to get to the path, to get to the end, to get on course that we want to get or not. Authenticity and comparison, also known as being you and staying on the path. Now, these two, Lois, taking on these two in one show, my hat goes off to you. If I had a hat on, you'd get it. But let's talk about authenticity first, because I think it's one of those things where no one in research has quite really defined it. The closest they come is in wrapping it into integrity. But what is it? And what is the energy sense of it?
For me, authenticity is actually showing up as you, always being you, not trying to quote unquote fit in, changing the way you speak or the way you want to be just because you're with somebody and seeking approval. Where's the approval desire coming from? What does it feel like when you're being you? You feel good. You don't feel constricted. You feel that you're showing up. And when you're there, you light up. So for being authenticity, integrity is definitely part of it, but it's also having a desire, sticking with the desire and always working towards that desire.
You know, one of the exercises I was given in my corporate career, who knows how long ago that was, it was a values exercise. And, I use the word values exercise because you could see, part of my corporate training and being a corporate, organizational behaviorist, right? We do these things to try to figure out what's going on. But it was really interesting to really look at core values. And let's talk about them for a minute, because why? One, you should really know what yours are. And two, if you know what yours are, but your life is not marching according to their direction, oopsie, right?
Definitely. I find that if you know what you stand for, right? It's what you believe in, what you feel into, like you're grounded by it. Some people it's family. Some people it is, integrity. Not necessarily righteous, but having a truth about yourself. Those things actually guide you. And when you're not in alignment with your core values, your life is going to show it. And when you are in alignment, you're like, wow, this is all working out. Like, how does this happen? Yeah. And it's because you are following that path that says, this is who I am. This is what I want. This is where I want to go. And if you don't know that, I really invite you to stop for a moment, take a deep breath and say, hey, what do I really stand for?
Yeah.
Because you can't, as the saying goes, if you sort of want everybody and everybody likes you, the likelihood is you're not standing for something because you're morphing yourself to show up the way they want you to show up. And when you leave there, you kind of go, okay, I didn't really like that.
Yeah.
That's not who I am. Yeah. So
I remember
what's stopping you?
Exactly. I remember having a conversation with my mom, Mama Doris, my stepmom. And I remember sitting down, I think right after my dad died. And it was almost like I was a little bit annoyed at asking her this question. I was like, why did you teach us girls that we are human beings first and that we're different second? That was her philosophy of life. We're all human beings. It doesn't matter what part of the world you come from, what color your skin is, what your religion is. She taught us three girls that we are all human first. And if we acted out of line with that, if we treated somebody poorly, if we use language against a race or a culture, I mean, she was really a phenom. It was zero tolerance is an understatement for her. And I asked her about that. And she just looked at me and said something like, well, how else would you have it, Patty? How else would you have it? What differences would you put at the top of your list? So let's talk about this, because values and purpose, and we are guided by them all the time. Likes and dislikes, we're human. But then again, so often we don't even know one end from the other. I think authenticity shows up in our pop culture and our movies, right? There's a really cool movie between Julia Roberts and Richard Gere. You remember that movie?
Would we be talking Runaway Bride?
Runaway Bride. And do you
Love
remember
that movie.
but at the end took you to a place where you looked at yourself and said, oh my gosh, I don't know that either. But how does that become a real hook and sore point? Because in the movie, right, she can't decide what kind of egg she likes, right?
I like the fact that she doesn't even recognize that she doesn't know what type of egg she likes,
Yeah.
because it's that whole, well, he likes that, I'm going to like that too. And it's like, and I can honestly speak that I've done that. I mean, I like cars. I like how they ride. I like driving. Gives me a freedom. But at the same time, I don't necessarily need to know every, 355 size engine, whatever. I need to know how it runs. Yes. My mechanic, he knows the rest of that. But I used to morph myself with my boyfriends and go, hey, I want to know more about this. And in my head, I'm going, no, I really don't. Right. So finding that out and saying, hey, if you want to go with the buds, talk about cars, yay, I'm out. I'm going to do something I like to do. And it's not a matter of, I think it actually helps relationships when you don't always show up to things that you don't like. It's one thing to support. It's a whole different thing to sit in something and go, this isn't me. My hubby, not a fan of rom-coms. I love them. And we actually do the whole, you watch that on your time. And I'm like, yes, I'm good with that, right? So I think that's where authenticity comes, and not knowing what you like, as in poor Julia, who didn't even realize she didn't know what she liked, coming down to going, oh, hold on a sec, and actually working through all the different choices and going, this is what I like. This is who I am. This is what I believe. This is what I feel. And then you just kind of go, that's so cool. I mean, my grandmother used to tell me, everybody else's life is taken. You were given one. Live it. Live it your way. Be happy. Figure it out. And I used to get kind of upset with the figure it out term, because wouldn't it be nice if we just had a book that said, this is the way you go? But it isn't. And that's part of the great thing about authenticity is it's a work in progress. You learn it as you go, because you figure out what makes you feel expansive, and you figure out what doesn't make you feel expansive and feel contractive. So
yeah, now you know you're in trouble when grandma says, just Google it, honey, right? Just Google it.
So true.
I want to talk about the other side of this coin, which is where I think in the world we're living in now, we are really on the edge of this becoming a serious, I think, self-esteem issue, and that is around comparison. If you are truly in yourself and truly in that place of understanding and knowing, which I think we're all work in progress, but if you are in that place, you're less likely to look outside of yourself to see how you're doing, because Tell us about comparison and what that means to us and how it impacts us.
Comparison to me is an extremely slippery slope. It is one in which, while you look outside yourself and everybody tells you, oh, that looks good on you. Oh, I think you should be doing this. I think you should, and you watch them and you think, hey, I really like how they look. I like how they, what they're doing, what they have. I want that. But do you? I think of a conversation actually my spouse and I had the other evening about kids who want something and then they get it and then they don't want it anymore. And I find that interesting in many ways. And I think, well, competitive spirit, we got to win, we got to have this. We're always taught if you don't come first, you're nothing. And I honestly think if you show up and you give it your best, way to go, right? Like that's what we call the baby step because you're doing it. For me, trying, you're either doing it or you're not. You may not be doing it well, but you're getting better because you actually showed up as opposed to the people in the stands that did not and want to criticize you.
Yeah.
And that is one thing that when you know yourself, the people that support you, and this comes back to Mr. Roosevelt's speech of the man in the arena, your supporters are in the ring with you. The circus in the crowd, that noise that you hear, I really, if you ever could have a hearing aid that just tuned into you, please buy it. And, that shuts out the noise outside. All it does is take you off the path. And you look back 20 years and go, this isn't what I planned. What happened? How did I get here? And maybe it's because the noise was a lot louder. And I remember as a kid looking at magazines and seeing these nice, thin looking women who look fabulous and going, I want that. My body's not built that way. It isn't, it's just, it is what it is. And I've come to love it. It holds me up, I get out of bed every day, which I'm thoroughly grateful for. And it allows me to be me. So comparisons just take us away from who I think we're supposed to be. If we could close in and just be quiet and just listen to ourselves, the ones that are, that's crying out saying, you're fabulous, because you really are.
Yeah.
If you just let yourself.
I'm really struck by a couple things. And here, as we're coming up for the Oscars, we just finished the Golden Globes. I stepped back from this and I thought, oh, this was me now talking to myself and Linda. I said, wow, these movies, they are really heavy. This was me. And then I said, except for the Bob Dylan one, but that's really heavy. I mean, the Demi Moore movie about never being good enough, right? That theme. Then you've got the other one about being different. That's a heavy movie if you watch it. And then there are a couple of more where you're looking at, some of the movie with a very interesting theme with Zoe Saldana in it, right? About being different and, transgender. I just looked at these and I said, my gosh, there's a theme here. And then almost said, I wonder why. And I didn't say it. But when you're looking at this, there is now an awareness to the fact that we are doing the comparison and being distracted by noise more than we even know. It's almost as if it's part of how we decide who we are going to become.
True. Very true. And I find that doom scrolling, if that term is still relevant, and I actually find it being very relevant because when you spend so much time looking at videos of how other people are living their lives, it's one thing to get an idea and say, that's a different way of doing it. Maybe I want to see that. Or because what you're doing doesn't feel good to you. But at the same time, it's one of those where's your life going if all you're doing is scrolling, trying to figure out how everybody else is living? at the end of the day, I don't want to be lying, getting ready to transition out and go, oh man, get me Facebook. I need to look some more. Or, or I need to find out how other people continue to live. It's one thing to be aware. It's another thing to be living. What is that term? Where somebody else is having that great life and you're living vicariously through them.
Vicariously. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Forget the vicariously.
Yeah.
Do it yourself.
Yeah.
Go,
and I think,
go raise it.
well, you're bringing up something interesting because let me ask you this question. I want to tie it back to how we put the goal, I'm going to call it a goal, of living authentically, how we set that out in the forefront so that we can truly experience that path that we want to walk. That path, whether it be a path of love or joy, acceptance, success, money, whatever that path is, it's influenced by how well we do authenticity and comparison. I mean, those are two things that will either guide us really quickly, full steam ahead, or full steam into the iceberg, one or the other. It's going to, right? And many other places in between. So how do we navigate this?
For me, I find that when you decide what it is that you really love and what you really want to do, the hard part is when you have your naysayers.
Oh boy.
And they're the ones that are close to you because they want to protect you, because they think your dream is either too big or too out of there. But the minute you know that, the minute you know who you want to show up as, I invite you to do it. Because when you don't do that and you're comparing yourself, as I said before, your life seems to go by in a blink of an eye. And really, in relative terms, when you think how long the earth has been around, our life is a blink of an eye. And we don't know when our time to leave is. So being authentic works on knowing your core values, knowing what you want to do in your life. And, say you've got that job right now that to you is, oh my gosh, it's a job. I sold my soul when I walked to the door. I left it. I'll pick it up on my way out. But you have a dream. I really invite you to take the dream and start working on it on your off hours. Turn the TV off, stop streaming services, start working on that dream. And eventually that dream, with support and with help, that dream is going to be your life. And that job is going to be a former memory that you were really happy for because it supported you for a time, but now you get to do what you really want. And it doesn't matter what age you are either, because age is a number. So I would invite to quit comparing. Everybody else is on their own path. And we don't know their path. We don't know where they've come from, what they've been through. We might see the final outtake. When I look at sports and people say, oh my God, he's like the best ever, and I'm thinking, do you know how many hours and how many things he gave up or she gave up to be that person? Because that's their dream. If that's not your dream, be inspired by it. Maybe figure out some ways of tools and that, which, I'd be happy to give you, that move you past the barriers through the, when the obstacles show up and you're like, I'm out, I'm done. I can't do this. What was I thinking? And you get really in your head and you look at everybody else who seems to have it easy because you're comparing your life again. Go back to what the authentic you who says, hold on a sec, you got this. This is your dream. This is what you've been living for. This is what you want. Remember your why. Your why is huge. Remember your core values. They won't lead you astray. So a little over the place, but
no, you're right on track. And let me give you an example. I was part of a conversation between two women Saturday. And one of them was talking about how many hours she works. And, you could hear the conversation and I just listened. And the other one was like, you should go work for yourself, right? You should start your own business. You should get right because one is a corporate person, works in a corporation. The other one is an entrepreneur, a businesswoman. And to listen to the one tell the other one. And finally, my friend, the corporate one, says, I wouldn't do what you did for all the money in the world. And the other person was shocked. The face was like, and she said, I go to work every day, albeit I may work 50, 60 hours. I get paid well. When I come home, my time is my time. And she looked at her friend and she said, I know you. I've known you for a lot of years. I've seen you pick up your phone in the middle of church service. And it was interesting to have them agree to disagree and to really come to a place where they recognize, no, I couldn't do your corporate job. And no, I don't want to be the business owner you are. Now, what is that? What is that? That represents exactly what we're talking about today, is getting to know yourself well enough to know what's yours and what's not. But stepping into that place of authenticity, even if you are going to compare, is going to build up that muscle, isn't it?
It is. And I think the other thing is that respecting others' lives and not shooting them. Sometimes it's great, as you've mentioned, it does provide a whole different understanding of each person that they didn't know, which is great because then the bonds are a lot closer. And it really aligns to, this is my boundary. This is who I am. I know in the core of myself, I am doing what I need to do and what I want to do.
Lois, this is important, and this is going to become an ongoingly, increasingly more important conversation. AI is not going away.
No.
Information downloads. I'm having a problem with my phone right now where I cannot stop the pop-ups. This is the world we're living in. However, we have the ability to manage and control ourselves. What's your personal message? Thank you so much for today. How do people find out more about you and work with you? Thank you for this topic today.
Well, personally, I really invite you to stop. The world moves fast enough, and take the time. Everybody says, I don't have the time, which to me says it would be beneficial if you actually just paused and figure out what's really important to you, what you want to do, where you want to go. And if you need help with that, support with that, Time to Soar, myself, we'd love to help you out. You can always find me at timetosoarcoaching.ca. You can connect with me that way. You can connect with me through email, Lois at timetosoarcoaching.ca, because we really want you to soar in your life, not sit on some bird on a wire that's looking at it, or sitting on the runway with, no power going. It's really your life. And I think you should soar and see the areas of the world you want to.
Thank you for that. It's fascinating. My neighbor put out bread. I guess it's snowing here a little bit. So everybody think the birds are they're going to die of starvation, right? That's right. So that's us here in the Pacific Northwest. So my neighbor put out the bread, and it was fascinating to watch exactly the pathway. The bread was put out for the crows, and to watch the crows navigate that. But was even more importantly was to watch the squirrel, who knew exactly what pathway it was going to take, who understood when to jump up for the piece of bread and when not. And the reason I'm bringing it up is because there's so much we learn from ourselves, from nature. But I will tell you the truth. The crow was the crow and the squirrel was the squirrel. And they never did meet over the bread, but each got their fair share. Thank you for reminding us of that, Lois.
Thank you, Dr. Pat. I've enjoyed talking with you. As you said, half an hour probably isn't a lot of time to discuss this. And as per the other pearls that I have shared, we can have longer conversations.
Absolutely.
But I am grateful for today.
I am too. And sometimes you're the crow and other times you're the squirrel. Thank you all for tuning us in and turning us on. We'll see you next time.
You have been listening to Your Time to Soar, the Wisdom from Pearls. Tune in every second Tuesday of the month at 11:30 a.m. Pacific with Lois, Leonard, and Dr. Pat for more pearls that will help your dreams come to life. If life seems complicated, use the pearls for support. These gems are for you to enjoy and learn something new. Life is an experiment. Be curious and use the pearls daily and see the change in your life. Schedule a discovery session with Lois to discuss further by visiting timetosoarcoaching.ca.